Right now, today, I'm juggling client projects, marketing the show, writing new episodes, and answering questions from women who want to know how to do exactly what I'm going to talk about. I'm not telling you this from some finished look back and laugh place. I'm telling you this because I'm in it. And if you've been waiting for a big open block of time to finally start building something of your own, I want to talk you out of that today. Hi, I'm Trish, and this is Just a Number, the podcast for women 40 and up who are ready to stop waiting and start building from everything they already know. Part business, part unlearning, part confidence reset. Because you're not starting over, you're evolving with intention. We're talking lived experience, career wisdom, passions, and hard-earned perspective, turned into content, courses, and offers that actually help people. We're not here to play by the rules. Let's build boldly, teach what we know, and make it count. Welcome to Just a Number. When was the last time you had an actual free hour just sitting there, waiting for you to use it? Not one you scraped together by staying up too late or getting up early. A real one that just showed up on its own. If you're anything like me, that's pretty much never. And if you've been waiting for that hour to just magically show up before you start building a digital product or offer, you're likely going to be waiting a long time. I run a business, so I've got client work with deadlines, marketing that never actually finishes, this podcast every single week, and people reaching out with questions about how any of this might actually work for them. Some weeks, I'm just so damn busy, I don't even know which fire to put out first. None of that stops so I can build something new. It just doesn't work like that. Something I don't talk about a lot is when I first started thinking about building my own courses and products, separate from the client work I was doing. I had spent years doing it, so it wasn't a lack of knowledge, but it required a completely different mindset for me. It just didn't feel like a natural next step. It felt like a whole new muscle I needed to develop. And it took a long time to actually put together because I was busy with everything else that was already on my plate. I still live that today. This podcast is a great example. Most weeks, it's just me coming up with a topic, writing it, recording and editing, getting it out into the world, and then actually talking about it so people will go listen. We have a very small team, and sometimes those people are pulled onto other projects. So some weeks I'm doing this whole thing, start to finish, completely on my own. So if your life feels like a full plate that was already full before this idea ever showed up, a job, maybe a family, friends, people who needed you, I guess your life looks a lot like mine. And that's exactly why just start small isn't great advice in my opinion. It just gets said so much that it stopped meaning anything. What does small even look like on a day when you've got a full inbox, a kid who needs a ride, a client waiting on something from you? That vague kind of advice, it's easy to ignore. But a specific one is a lot harder to talk yourself out of. It's not big progress versus small progress. It's small progress versus none at all. Because that's usually the real choice in front of you, whether you notice it or not. It's not asking, should I build the whole thing this weekend? It's more like, do I do one small thing today, or do I let another week go by with that idea I have just sitting there in the back of my mind again? And I get why doing nothing feels like the safer option. If you haven't cleared a big chunk of time, it can feel like there's no point starting anything at all. I've had that exact feeling and thought myself this week, looking at my week and thinking, where in the hell am I supposed to find an extra hour for this on top of everything else? It's easy to tell yourself it doesn't count unless it's blocked off on your calendar. 15 minutes here and there kind of feels like cheating. But flip that around for a second. Protecting 15 minutes for something you actually want to build isn't cheating anybody. It's you putting yourself on the list for once instead of letting everyone and everything else get first pick of your time. That's not a small thing. And an idea that stays in your head doesn't get you anywhere, no matter how good it is. But a messy list on your phone, jotted down in 5 minutes at a red light, moves you forward more than a perfect plan you never actually write down. I think a lot of us get stuck here because we're comparing our 15 minutes to someone else's whole weekend retreat. And of course, in comparison, 15 minutes looks super small next to that. But you're not in competition with their schedule. You're only working with yours, and yours counts just as much. So instead of asking whether you have enough time for this, ask what you can actually do with the time you have today. Totally different question, and only one of them actually has an answer. Now, because this is where most advice stays way too fuzzy to actually use, let's just break this down. Some nights, that 15 minutes is choosing not to watch another episode of something on Netflix and instead sitting down and getting your thoughts out of your head and onto a page. I'm not talking about a perfect page, just a page. Some days it might look like sitting at your kids' practice. You're already there. You're already going to be on that bench for an hour anyway. So instead of spending the whole time chatting with the other parents, pull out your phone and jot down whatever's been floating around in your mind. Even a few lines count. Or maybe you find 10 minutes before everyone else in the house wakes up. You've got a great hot cup of coffee in your hand, and before the day even starts pulling at you from 6 different directions. Or the parking lot where you walk into work. Or a waiting room you can't get out of anyway because you have an appointment. None of it has to be organized. It doesn't have to make sense to anyone but you yet. You're not writing a finished offer sitting on that bench. You're just getting it out of your head because an idea that stays trapped up there, well, it can't turn into anything. And this one might surprise you. One of the easiest ways to do this is just talking to AI. You can open up ChatGPT or Claude, whatever you prefer to use, and start just explaining your idea the way you would tell a friend over a drink, the messy version, the one that maybe feels too small or too obvious or too far from being real. It doesn't matter how far away it feels right now. It's actually really good at taking those scattered thoughts and helping you shape them into something that starts to resemble an actual offer. You just talk. It helps you organize. It'll even ask you questions that you maybe haven't thought of yet. For a lot of women I talk to, that's the whole first step. None of this requires a free weekend. It just requires deciding it matters enough to protect a few minutes for it on purpose instead of letting those minutes disappear. So, what's actually waiting on the other side, and why is it worth it? You don't need a big, complicated product to make this work. A simple offer priced low doesn't need thousands of buyers to matter. Let's say you price something at $15 or $20. 100 people buy it. That's $1,500 to $2,000 just from organic marketing with no ad spend, no huge following required. You don't need a massive audience for that. You just need to find the right small group of people who will benefit from exactly what you're offering. Now, that kind of income might not replace what you're making somewhere else, not at first, but as a start, as something building alongside everything else you're doing, it adds up. It's real money sitting in your own pocket that came directly from something you created and you built. Once you see even a handful of people buy what you made, once you hear it actually helps someone, that changes something in you. It stops being a maybe. It becomes inspiration and fuel. You start wanting to make the next thing Or you start going back and making the first thing even better, tightening it up a bit, fixing the part that felt a little clunky. You can start actually talking to the people who bought it, ask them what they're struggling with now, and then figure out what else you could build for them inside the thing you already know how to do. Build it, sell it, listen to what they tell you, go improve it. That's really what keeps you going long after the initial motivation wears off. That's not a hustle story. That's just what happens when something real starts working, even in a small way, even if it started as 15 minutes at a kid's practice. This isn't really about finding time. Time doesn't just show up on its own, waiting for you to notice it. It's about making a decision today that this matters enough to protect a small piece of your day for it. That might mean putting your phone down before you start doom scrolling and opening a notes app instead. It could mean staying in the car 5 extra minutes after you park to get a thought down before it disappears. Or maybe using part of your lunch break for that instead of catching up on group texts. None of it has to happen on the timeline the internet is selling you. It might take a little longer than you'd like. I know it did for me. But once you know what's actually possible and you see that it's achievable even on a slower timeline, you start finding ways to squeeze it into the life you're already living instead of waiting for a life that has more room in it. What matters is that you're moving, even in tiny pieces, instead of staying still because the time never feels like enough. It never will feel like enough. Move anyway. I hope today's episode gave you a clearer sense of what small can actually look like, and maybe one small window you can protect this week. If you haven't already, please follow the show so you don't miss what's coming next. I'll see you in the next episode. Remember, just a number.